is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, brought to you by Renee Pope Monroe, covering Veronica Mars, Season 1, Episode 16, Betty and Veronica. In this episode, we find out a little bit of what happened when Veronica saw her mom, but I feel like there's a lot that's not explained there, and I'm not sure if I just missed something or if we're not supposed to know yet. Y'all are going to have to help me out. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. And yeah, this episode was really it was built strangely. I don't feel like Veronica Mars has done this sort of playing with time before. But evidently, as we get further into this mystery, I think they may have to do this again at some point. But there is clearly some obfuscation going on by the show. Because I just don't... All right. I'm going to talk about this and what I understood of this. But again, like I said in the intro, I feel like I missed something. So, because Veronica, it's like when she first arrives to and finds her mom in this bar, there's this moment of all of these different men who are staring and seem to be like part of this crew that's supposed to be keeping her mother safe. And she then doesn't seem to have to deal with these guys. Like, so either they let her talk to her daughter, they're not a threat like Veronica thought, or they were put off for some reason. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself here because we start this episode off with Veronica tearing her room apart. So it's not like we begin right where we left off with the other episode where there's like, you know, they're sitting in this bar together and we immediately go into, Mom, what are you doing here? Nothing. This is like, you know, I'm here because they put me here or whatever. It's Veronica searching for a bug because she knows that these guys must have been there because they knew she was coming, and they couldn't have known unless they had been tracking her somehow. So she manages to figure out that there's like this like weird pencil sharpener that she got sent by a charity. And I don't know if you guys have ever had this kind of thing arrive. I haven't had something like that, but I've definitely gotten like notebooks and stuff that is supposedly soliciting donations. But this is a giant panda-shaped pencil sharpener, which when she breaks it open, there is a bug inside. When Veronica arrives at this bar, because it flashes from her finding this bug, thinking about how she came home and changed because she didn't want her mom to see her for the first time after all this time wearing a Madonna costume, basically. And how she like talked on the phone and arranged that she was coming here. I don't even remember why, like she must have flown. But it jumps from that to seeing this guy give her a look and then immediately leave from the bar, which makes me think that he's notifying somebody that she's there. But I don't understand why he had to leave, why he couldn't make a phone call. And her mother is wasted and obviously having a really hard time coping with everything. And we find out later that Veronica she pays for her mother's rehab. Now, y'all, I have such mixed feelings about this. First of all, her mother clearly does have a problem, but it seems as if this problem has sprouted up now due to the extreme stress that she's under because of this whole situation, which I am not totally, like, I don't love that this is something that Veronica is taking responsibility for. And the fact that she empties this account, that her mother lets her. I mean, I know that her mother objects initially, but the whole way that this goes down, considering that Veronica knows that her mother was either cheating on her dad or very close to cheating on her dad, and she's paying for this in the hopes of getting her mother to come home because she misses her, I feel like this may be a huge waste of money. Because, what is it, 12 weeks, the program? Something like that. That is often not enough to really, like, we're talking about somebody who has a significant external stressor. Somebody is threatening her child's life, is blackmailing her. This woman could do pretty well in rehab and get out again and be put back into a really stressful and life-threatening situation again. And what good is this going to do in the long run? Like, you want to hope that she's going to have learned better coping mechanisms in rehab so that when she gets out, if this continues to be her situation, she'll be better equipped to deal with it. And that's the ideal. But let's be honest about that. This is a really unusual and very specific situation. I feel like addressing her drinking problem is the Band-Aid on a wound, you know? And I don't know. This whole thing just felt really weird and like out of place. And it felt like, again, that I missed like a whole, and I maybe that's the point, that I missed a whole portion of the conversation. Maybe that's supposed to be what I'm getting from this, and that they're keeping something else from me until later. But by the end of the episode, it felt like we had seen the whole thing. It felt like we were supposed to have been kept in suspense throughout the episode. But by the end of it, it was, all the cards were supposed to be on the table in that respect. And I'm just not, I don't know. I just did not find this in particular satisfying. Veronica decides against destroying this bug because she thinks that the guy who is detecting her, keeping track of her, is still listening. Which, I mean, she broke the panda open and moved the bug all over the place and then pressed it back into place. And I can't help but wonder if that isn't a dead giveaway. Like, he's not going to hear the breaking and know that she figured this out. But, okay. And so she winds up using this bug to set the guy up later, to do something that I figured was the case, which is she puts it together finally that the guy who turned himself in as the murderer is striking a deal with somebody for a bunch of money, probably to go to his daughter. It turns out that he has a daughter. Evidently, though, like, she's not really on record because, Veronica would have found out about this early on, I think, if she had been looking into this guy's past. And so evidently his daughter is a bit of a secret. So, I would like to know more about, like, how that deal is and how it was set up. But I'm going to take a break from talking about her situation with her mom because it gets broken up throughout this episode. And let's first talk about Veronica in school dealing with Duncan dating her friend. And I had not really even thought of, because, like, Duncan is part of the crew that made Veronica's life miserable. And Meg is her friend, but because Meg is now dating Duncan, Meg is going to be sucked into the world of the people who ruined Veronica's life for at least a year. And it never really occurred to me that, like, whether Veronica is okay with Meg dating Duncan, which she clearly is not, but setting that aside, even if she were, when you start dating somebody, you want to be spending all of your time with them. That's just how it works. And so Meg is going to be spending all of her time with people that Veronica can't be around, that she can't stand, that cannot stand her. It's a very mutual thing. So essentially, Meg dating Duncan is causing Veronica to lose a friend, which sucks. I would like to register, like, I just want to put it out there that I do understand Meg and Duncan. I think that they make sense as a couple. I think that Duncan obviously has good taste because she's a decent person who is, kind-hearted, and that speaks well of him that he went after her. I like the way he went after her. I think it's creative and clever and fun. But I really do, wish that it had occurred to her what Veronica brings up later, because she tries to be like, well, we don't have to travel in different circles, and Veronica really has to spell it out for her that, like, these people despise me. Why would I want to just drop, everything that's happened to me over the past year and pretend it never did happen? Like, this isn't something that I can do. And even if I were capable of that, it's not fair to ask me to do that. And it's not, right for them to just get away with the way that they've acted either. And Meg seems to get it, that maybe they can make their own circle, is what she suggests. And I hope that's true. But I do wish that Veronica could also face there's nothing to be said to Meg about this that isn't going to seem like a manipulation. But the truth is, let's be honest, Veronica is heartbroken about Duncan seeing someone else. And even if he maybe is related to her, she was in love with him, and you don't just get to shelve all of those feelings for somebody because you found out something like that. It would be great if you could just drop it, and maybe for some people it would erase all your feelings and you'd suddenly just be so horrified that it all falls by the wayside. But obviously Veronica can't do that. And in some ways, I wish she had opened the results and found out who her real father was so that we could put to bed whether or not that was a factor here. Because if she knew for sure, it might help. It might help in getting over Duncan and seeing him in a different way. But Veronica, when she first comes to school in the beginning of this scene, passes by the two of them at their locker, acting really lovey-dovey, and just obviously is having a really hard time. She gets called into the principal's office, and it turns out that somebody stole their mascot, a parrot named Polly. And Veronica assumes that she's being called in here because they think she did it. She's so irritated. It's so funny. But of course she assumes that because they just accuse her of fucking everything, right? So she assumes that, and the principal's like, no, I want your help. And of course she assumes that somebody from a rival school did it. I'm trying to remember what the name of that other school is. But it turns out, we find out, somebody takes the credit for it. And as soon as Veronica winds up infiltrating this other school. I guess she just drops classes at her school, or I don't know, just skips. Maybe she has a free period. But she just sneaks in and acts like she's a student there and comes into the cafeteria and just hangs around and makes friends with people and acts like she's new. And because she's cute and friendly and agreeable, people are willing to tell her a lot of stuff. So this first dude that she meets, it actually turns out, because he looks like he's going to be a total idiot. But it turns out that he's actually a pretty nice guy, and he's like got a lot of school spirit, which is something I've never really understood, but God bless. And he is talking with her when some kid walks in and is getting like cheered on by everybody. And this kid posted a picture of himself with a parrot, and everybody's like really impressed with the fact that he stole a parrot. As soon as I saw him, I'm like, this dweeb didn't steal no parrot. This dweeb lied because he wants people to like him. And we find that out really quickly that that's true. He just went to a pet store and took a photo of himself with a parrot at the pet store and posted that and pretended that he stole it. Because honestly, there's no way, like, it's not just that, you know, oh, this kid's obviously a huge nerd and he wouldn't steal a parrot. It's mostly, to me, a factor in a lot of nerd personalities is some intelligence. Some, she said cautiously. And posting a photo of yourself with a mascot stolen from another school is not something a smart person does. It's just going to get you in a whole lot of trouble. So this kid, I'm like, you know, crediting him with some intelligence that if he really did steal it, he wouldn't post about it. But it's amazing because he did post about it even though he didn't steal it. So he winds up getting in trouble anyway a little bit because Weevil winds up like threatening him. And that could have been the least of his concerns. Like, he could have wound up actually, you know, the school coming after him if they had seen this photo before Veronica headed it off. So I knew that it wasn't that kid. I kind of thought that it might be somebody in the school, but when she confronts Weevil, I kind of thought she had it at that point. I was like, oh, that would make a lot of sense. Weevil's pretty smart. I think that works, actually. And it turns out that it isn't Weevil, but it like kind of is. Like, he's involved with the setup that's causing Wallace's teammate to go through with this, in other words. So, so she was on the right track there. But I really, like, as much as I didn't want Weevil to get in trouble, I really did enjoy that possibility. Because I feel like he obviously is close to smart enough to think of this all on his own. I think it was the other kid's idea, but still. And what it turns out is going on is Wallace is a really good player. And he had said that last episode, like, you obviously haven't seen our team. I am the team. Which is a bit harsh, but I think we all have been there with one group project or another, is that there's a certain amount of pride we take in knowing that we're good at something and then quickly realizing that, like, oh, nobody else even gives a shit or is simply not up to it. And now this is my project and they're here. And that's all that they are, is just here. So he is starting and he is winning games. And this kid on his team had been placing bets against his own school. And then basically, what's the word? Taking a dive. He was going in, you know, they were going into overtime, or they were having like the 3-point shots. What is it? Fouls? Guys, I don't know about basketball. Come on, help me out here. And he was missing on purpose. So that, you know, he could get paid out. And if Wallace is the starter instead of him, then he is no longer able to control the flow of the game. And he is no longer, and really it's a matter of like, pride to me. The idea that this dude was more concerned about making money by pretending to be a bad player than he was in having the respect of his teammates and schoolmates as well. Which, damn, like, you really have to want that money bad if you're willing to do this kind of humiliating thing, because this isn't, This isn't humiliating like, I'll pay you $5 million if you run naked through the school. This isn't a one-time deal where everybody knows that you're doing this for money and everyone's aware that this is a wild stunt and whatever. This is a sustained, basically you're making a record for yourself. You're creating a reputation that you are terrible at this sport. And maybe he's able to just pull it out so that they lose at the very end and not be terrible throughout the entire game. And that's how he's sort of sustaining himself. But I've got to think that Wallace wouldn't be put above him as starter if he wasn't fucking up continually. And I just really can't understand. Like, for me, I would much rather have a better reputation amongst my peers than the money. Now, again, I don't know his situation. Maybe he just really fucking needs money. I don't know what's going on with him. But, man, that is a pretty intense sacrifice as a high schooler when you don't usually have a job. Like, your currency in high school is reputation, is status, is social status. Yeah. So this kid's like putting it all on the line for this. I am a little bit mad at Weevil though, because he knew that this was like basically what was going down and just, I think he knew anyway, right? And just kind of let it happen and then pretended to not know anything when Veronica came to talk to him. And I'm not mad at him in like a serious way, because part of what makes Weevil so delightful is his, chaotic neutral, that he's willing to help her out, but he's also going to do his own shady shit and continue with that. And that's fine. You could, I don't know. Is he chaotic neutral? I feel like he could even be like chaotic good a little bit, because he tends to want to do the right thing. It's just what he thinks is right is, I don't know. So, okay. I said that I was going to take things slow and like go bit by bit, but it's hard. The whole thing with Wallace too, like the school that Veronica infiltrates, and she calls herself Betty and says that she's from Riverdale, which I find delightful because this is the kind of thing that would not work today because of this show Riverdale being out. So she could not get away with it. But it turns out that their mascot is a goat, and their goat gets stolen. And then there's a delivery made to the school of like pounds and pounds of goat meat burgers. Well, that's fucked up. We find out that the goat's alive. And I honestly, there wasn't even a moment in my mind where I thought the goat had really been killed. I was like, listen, even if a bunch of high schoolers did decide to kill a goat, I know those high schoolers ain't going to butcher it and take it apart and make burgers out of it. Not happening. However, it is just such a fucked up thing to do that I was like, God damn, somebody is savage out there. Like, you don't have to kill that goat to make this like really fucking brutal. But yeah, as it turns out, this goat is alive and Wallace is feeding it. He's like grabbing all these like this apple and chips and shit. And as soon as he did that and starts walking away, I'm like, that motherfucker is about to go feed a goat. That's what's happening. And sure enough, there he was in the back of the van having torn that shit up. Which, I don't know how many of you have worked with goats or been around goats for a prolonged period of time. They get kind of an unfair reputation for eating anything when they don't really, but they will bite, clamp down, and yank on shit. So while they may not eat it, they are destroying things with their mouths. It's like a puppy chewing on things, And when I worked on this goat farm when I was, God, now it's like 10 years ago almost, I still remember this fucking goat. I was wearing this apron because milking was messy. And this goat came up to me and put her teeth over the apron pocket and yanked and just pulled the whole pocket off the front of my apron. So yeah, the inside of this van is pretty accurate. Like, that's how it would look. And I love the fact that, first of all, of course Wallace is too like kind-hearted to allow a goat to be murdered. But secondly, I love the fact that later when there's a threat, to Polly's life, Polly the parrot's life, that Wallace is so torn up about it that he really is like, all right, fine, I won't play. And I think, like, there's a mention earlier on in the episode about how when he worked in the office, he like struck up a rapport with this bird a little bit, and the bird would eat right out of his hand. And he's obviously super bummed at the idea that he can't play, but he's also clearly like really fucked up at the idea that maybe this bird could die if he played. Like, I think if I were him, I would also not play, but I'd be pretty tempted simply because I would be sure the person who claimed they'd kill the bird was bluffing. And I would really want to call their bluff. But then you run the risk of whoever made this threat, just out of spite, even if they weren't intending to kill the bird, realizing that you just like kind of gave them the finger and then deciding that they were going to do it anyway. And killing a bird is a lot easier than killing a lot of other animals. Like, birds don't have claws and shit that are as effective unless you're dealing with like, you know, a raptor kind of bird. They aren't going to be able to hurt you before you hurt them the way that a dog or cat or goat even could. So I could see it being something that, even though maybe the person making the threat wasn't initially serious about it, that they'd be able to like get themselves psyched up to do it pretty quick if I pushed the issue a little too much. So I side with Warren on this decision. But yeah, as it turns out, it's one of his own teammates, and I didn't even put together because, like, I only understood half the situation. I thought at first that he was only trying to get Warren out of the running for starter because he wanted to be starter, because it was like a pride and ego thing, you know? But the betting makes so much sense, and I don't know why that didn't occur to me beforehand. I guess I just, like, assumed that players were not allowed to bet, but betting is not supposed to be allowed in the first place. So that's why we need regulation on things like this, guys. I'm pro-regulation, just so you all know. But yeah, I really do like that reveal because it makes a lot of sense. It's kind of clever. This kid, like, you know, got outsmarted because Veronica's the best, but it was a pretty solid plan. You know, and apparently it's been going well for a while. I wonder what's going to happen to him now, though. Like, obviously he's going to have to be banned from the team. I'm wondering if he's going to be, like, suspended. Like, what kind of penalty comes with this? Can he be tried in court for placing an illegal bet? I feel like the bookie would have to, like, reveal themselves, and that isn't going to happen. So, probably not that. But, yeah. All right. So... Well, and there's this really cute reveal. I'm going to finish the Wallace thing, where Wallace has been getting these packages in his locker that he calls them spirit packages, and they're supposed to be like, you know, a little bit of a bonus for before each game. It's Veronica baking him cookies and stuff to, like, which I just love so much. Listen, you guys know I love to cook, and really up until this point, there's nothing that I felt like I could really relate to in regards to Veronica, besides the fact that we were both cute in high school. Like, that's kind of it. But otherwise, you know, her whole life is just so not relatable for me. When I saw her baking, I had forgotten all about his spirit package. I'm realizing what that sounds like as I say that. Spirit box. I had forgotten all about his spirit box from earlier in the episode, and I saw her baking, and I was like, no shit, Veronica bakes? This is so cute. What is she making? Why is she doing this? And then it turns out that it's for him, and it's so much better. Like, the fact that she likes to bake in the first place is awesome, and she's really good at it, it turns out, which I just really like that kind of weird layering to characters, because Veronica is not a character that is the type of stereotypical girly girl character that they tend to make good at cooking. Usually when there's a kind of tomboyish girl. And I say tomboyish in a really loose sense, because Veronica is not a tomboy really, but they make her tough. And that's obviously a coping mechanism, but still, I really didn't think the baking thing was going to be any part of her personality. So the fact that she does it, that she's good at it, that she's doing it to support a friend is just the sweetest, cutest thing. And I really, really like it. And it makes me want to bake for my friends more. Love that V is baking W cookies, even though she isn't into the school spirit. She's doing a nice thing for a BFF who's into it. Exactly. She already baked a cake for her dad's birthday. That's true. I forgot about the cake, but we don't see her doing it really. I think it's just, we just see them sitting with the cake, right? So I guess I kind of thought that, I don't think I even realized that she had made it. I guess I thought she had bought it, but she must have said she made it but yeah, so not seeing her in the act of it made it feel like the show was just yeah, I guess she baked him a cake, whatever. So this feels like they're kind of making it canon now, that this is a thing that she can do and is good at. And, no offense to Snickerdoodles. They're not the greatest cookie. It's fine. But I do really enjoy the fact that she didn't leave a name on these. They just appear in my locker just like that, because he's so awesome and he's so popular, and I love he just has no idea. It's pretty amazing. Go Wallace, we love you. You rock. And one of my favorite things about this is that she doesn't tell him, even though, guys, if you were standing there and this guy was bragging to you about how much people love him, that he got this stuff, and you were the one that had given him this stuff, would your patience be tried to the limit? Would you be dying to tell him? Because holy shit, I would. I would want to tell him so bad. I like to think I'd keep a lid on it, but I don't know if I'd be able to manage it, because that is awful tempting. And I love the fact that she happens to be right next to him when she finds it, because she made a deal with the principal to help him, where she gets her locker moved. I feel like there was a second thing, and then the third thing is she gets 2 excused absences from PE, which she wanted 3. She wanted to be able to get out of PE entirely. He could not do that. 3 was too much. 2 was okay. She wanted a parking spot. He could not do that either, which I'm not surprised. Parking spots at high schools, yeah, that was something that they would give away as raffle prizes and shit when I was in school. Those are high priority, and once somebody has it, they are not giving that shit up. I can't remember what the second thing was, though. I could swear that she I know what it was. She was going to write herself a letter of recommendation, and he had to sign it. I forgot about that. So she actually cuts herself a pretty sweet deal, and now her locker is right next to Wallace's, so they get to hang out and be at their lockers together, which I feel like is going to be really good for the script, because we need more Wallace overall. I would like for him to get a little bit more character expansion, though, having that bit about him and his mom and the guy that they were renting to and everything. I sort of expected the show to continue to expand on him and his mom and the family life, and they haven't done that. So I'm wondering if that's going to be more of a thing, or if they're just sort of they were just another story of the week, and it won't be a priority for the remainder of the season, because there are only, this is episode 16. So there are, I think, 5 episodes left this season. 6, maybe. So this is a pretty big story that they're starting to wrap up. All right, now let's talk about Veronica's mom. And we'll really get down to what's going on here, because the flashbacks are really intermittent. And it takes a while before we get the first one. We see her flashback of her and her mom. We see her tossing her room trying to find the bug, and then it's this whole section about the school and Polly and her infiltrating the other school and coming, it's all of that before we get the very first flashback of the conversation with Veronica and her mom. And this is part of what confused me so bad. Because Veronica gets there, this guy glares at her, he leaves, her mother's literally trying to run from her. And then we cut away and we cut back and she's in a booth having coffee. What happened? There's no urgency anymore. She was literally trying to run. And I get maybe that she wasn't like able to because she's really drunk and what is she going to do? But nobody comes in and interrupts them. If this guy was looking at Veronica because of the fact that she wasn't supposed to be there, could he not make a phone call and then come back and physically separate the two of them? I do not understand how they are allowed after this like really high stress first, like recognizing each other, this first encounter, how they're allowed to just sit and chill and talk for as long as they are. And it's totally, I don't want to say relaxed, but there, like I said, there's no urgency to it. And there's no sense of somebody's about to come down on us. They're not hiding. They're not trying to steal a few moments to speak to one another before they go and, you know, split up because they're trying to avoid someone. Like, they are in a booth in the, like, you know, several steps from where Veronica found her, talking and having coffee. And this completely confused me to the point that I started to rewind to see if I missed something, and then realized that nothing else with her mother had even happened yet that episode, beyond like the very first scene, reminding us where they were. So her mom is like, I don't know if she is so drunk that she's unaware, or if it's, or if her mother is so in denial about what she's done to her daughter by leaving. But Veronica is trying to tell her how terrible it is that she's gone. And her mother's like breezing right past that. And trying to like be like, do you remember when you wanted to shave your head like Sinead O'Connor? And Veronica finally like just busts in there and is just like, you know what? We're not doing this little like walk down memory lane shit. You're going to tell me about what the fuck is going on and you're going to do that now. And you're not going to try and like, you know, double talk me so that I don't know what's actually happening. So she asks her mom straight up if her mother defended Duncan's father because she was still in love with him and didn't want him to be a murderer, because she was still in love with him. And her mom says, no, because I was with him at the time of the murder. We were in a hotel room at the Neptune Grand. And of course, this cuts away from the flashback at that moment so that we are left thinking that what she means is that she was fucking Duncan's dad. However, that is not actually what she meant. She was just saying that she was with him. We could take it, I think, at face value that maybe she could have been meeting up with him to fuck earlier and that his wife only just found out this time around. But I feel like, I don't know. I can't decide because, you know, she isn't sure about Veronica's parentage. Like or paternity, I should say. She knows she's the mom. So obviously there had been something going on, like far enough into her relationship with Veronica's dad that there is some question there. But I don't know how to take this whole thing if it was just that they were like talking, because it could, she says like, I came to tell him to tell his wife to back off, but his wife might have been angry about Veronica dating Duncan because she knew that her husband was already having an affair. You know, like, I just don't really, I don't know. So, all right, I'm trying to keep track of exactly how this gets told because her mother tells her that, and I'm trying to remember, is it Claudia? What's the name of Duncan's mom and dad, actually, now that I say that? I'm trying to, she calls Veronica's mother and tells her that she doesn't want Veronica seeing Duncan anymore, right? And Veronica's mother, Duncan's mom is named Celeste. Okay, I knew it started with a C. Thank you, AF Tanith. I'm trying to think, like, so she calls Veronica. Does she call Veronica's mother, or does she call Jake and tell him to tell Veronica's mother? I think she calls Veronica's mother, right? And tells her that she is not to see Duncan anymore. And then Veronica's mom tells Jake to tell his wife to back the fuck off, or she is going to go to the... She's going to blow the whole thing wide open and get a paternity test on Veronica and take him for millions. Oh, here it is. Celeste was leaving a message for Veronica saying she had important information involving me and her husband. I think she felt you ought to know. Right. Okay. So she's basically saying, yes, that she had been sleeping with this guy. Okay, so this, again, throws everything even more into question, with Veronica, like, trying to... sort of behaving as if putting her mother through rehab is going to fix everything. Like, this is such a huge thing her mom is dealing with. For her to... I mean... I know when she says, I miss you and I want you to come home, she doesn't necessarily mean that her mom moves back in with them and lives with her dad and is like everything's the same. She just means that she wants her mother in her life again. And I do understand that, but I just don't see, with the situation as it is, that she can have that, even if her mother does recover. So, yeah. And I'm trying to find the exact moment because, again, we jump back. We have Weevil threatening this kid. Her mother, I just need a little sip of something. No, Mom, I need you to talk to me. I need you to focus here. And if you drink, you're just going to be out of it again. I'm just going to get a beer. And she like gets up and walks away. And again, if this woman's being watched and she's being kept in a bar, does she choose I'm just so confused about how this whole thing is set up. I convinced him to make her back off. And she tells her the truth about like the paternity thing. Veronica asks like, do you know that it would have said that he was my dad? And she says no. She's like, do you know that it would have said that my dad is my dad? And her mother says, I don't know. Again, oh, Veronica, I wish that you would just open those friggin' results and just like fix this for everybody. I just want to know, please. I'm dying. And again, she says, I don't know. And we break away and we go back into the present. Have this whole thing going on where Veronica's getting the tapes of the interrogation so that she can figure out exactly who is in the life of the guy who turned himself in, if he has any relatives. Like, she's already on this train of thought. And then when we go back into flashbacks, this is the weird one, because this is a flashback that is not... The flashbacks that we've been seeing so far are flashbacks of Veronica's perspective seeing her mom. And this is just a weird thing, and maybe it doesn't matter, but Veronica is having flashbacks of... Oh, no, that's right. It's not exactly a flashback. She is listening to the interrogation tapes where her father is pressing Jake for information on where he was, and then is pressing Celeste separately, and their stories do not match up at all. So, of course, her father assumes that the mom was with them, was with Jake. And it turns out that she was, but like not for as long. Like the whole thing wound up being, what's the word I want? The whole thing wound up being blown up so much by Celeste turning up that his wife was not fucking Jake as he thinks, but might have been if it were any other day and if they had not been interrupted by Celeste. As it turns out, Celeste broke the whole thing up and then remained and got in this huge fight with Jake. So he still does have an alibi, and he still definitely didn't do it. And Celeste is like not entirely lying by giving him an alibi. It's just that the alibi is not what he thinks. So it turns out that my theory that it was Duncan's father is likely not true, although it could still be Duncan's father, like indirectly. Then there's, you know, the theory on, well, her mom left. Could her mother be the one that killed Lily? That would be pretty crazy. Obviously, if her mother has a drinking problem, maybe she had it already. Maybe she went to the house for some reason and like lost her temper and killed Lily for not really a good reason. I don't know. And then there's the whole fact that Lily said, I have a secret, a good one. And I don't feel like she would act that... I had theorized at first that maybe she was saying that about the fact that Veronica and Duncan are related, but I didn't think that she would be that cavalier about something that could be so devastating to her friend. And I feel a similar way about an affair. Like, if she thinks that Veronica's mom is having an affair, she's not going to delightedly treat it like this, like, joke. Lily is a very impulsive person, but she's not totally thoughtless, you know? She's not somebody who just doesn't have consideration for other people. It's that her consideration is just different than a lot of folks would be. And so her saying I have a secret just feels like it has to be about a whole other thing, that it has to be totally unrelated to all of this like intrigue that's going on. And I guess that in the end, why Celeste like lies for her husband, because, you know, she's about to spill the beans on that voicemail that she left. So initially I was like, well, why doesn't she just tell then? If she was going to tell, then just go ahead and tell. But if her husband tells her that this woman said that she might take me for millions because that could be my kid, that might make her shut the fuck up pretty hard. And this would also explain why she feels towards Veronica the way that she does. Like, this woman has a lot of reason to resent Veronica. She really does. As much as that's not fair and Veronica doesn't know any of this is going on, too bad. You know, this is a clear lightning rod here. So that I really feel for Veronica in this situation, because, you know, we haven't gotten to see a lot of her like memories of her mom. And I guess I always assumed that her mother was generally a really like good calming force in her life. And I'm realizing that I have no reason to think that. And that the mom that I'm seeing here is a drunken disaster and was fucking this other dude behind her dad's back and was just like really seems like an unreliable person in general. And I'm wondering if this is jiving with who Veronica knows her mother to be at all, or if this is all a total shock and just not how she saw her mom at all. I'm wondering if she didn't see her mom like this because she was just a little too like, what's the word about it? If she was just a little too blinded by it. And so hearing all of this now is like making some things fall into place for her that hadn't before, or if it really does seem like it's completely out of left field, totally out of character. I can't believe that you're nothing like the person that I thought. We don't get a lot of feedback from Veronica in this episode other than her being really shocked, of course, but you know, a lot of times we'll react like that in the moment, and then later as we think it over, we're like, wait a second. So yeah, I'm curious. I would like to see how she feels about it, because all we see in the end is that she paid for her mother's rehab and that she misses her and wants her to come back. But in terms of how this has changed the way that she sees her mom overall, that's still pretty unclear. And that is what interests me, to be honest, is like the themes of growing up and realizing that the adults in your life are human beings and don't suddenly gain access to like a font of wisdom that makes them better people or wiser people. It's just a bunch of people, and your parents fuck up, and it's not always accidental either, that sometimes it's purposeful and they're just making bad choices. I think it's a lot easier for us to be like, well, people make mistakes, when we like to think that those mistakes are just like, errors in judgment at them for a moment. But sometimes people choose bad things over and over again that are not smart. And that's the part that when people say we make mistakes, that's really what they're talking about, I think. So she pays for this for her mom, drains this entire bank account, which just kills me. Doesn't tell her dad about it. And he says something about how well, I thought you were doing okay. You'd tell me, right? And I'm just like, Veronica, your dad is an investigator. I don't know how long you think you can go before he figures out exactly where you spent that money, but he's gonna figure it out. He's gonna look into where you've been. He's going to know that you there's no way that she's keeping this secret for very long. And the idea that she thinks she can is just adorable. I mean, what I'm thinking of is something from, I don't know if it was the last episode. I think it was the last episode that I had forgotten to mention entirely, which is the ink pack that he puts into that box because he knows that she's breaking into his safe. And so he puts one of those friggin' exploding ink packs in there and gets her. And it I had forgotten to even mention anything about that, but her dad knows her, and her trying to be like, oh, it must be a mistake from the bank calling that I'm overdrawn. Girl, your dad is not an idiot. He knows that there's something going on. I don't know what kind of, is she 18? I feel like she must be to be able to sign over a check to pay for her mother's treatment. But if she's not, I feel like whoever is her guardian in her life can even just get in there into that account, but that remains to be seen. So I'm trying to think what other pieces of this I want. Oh, Meg and Veronica are running into each other all over the place. And one of them is when Veronica is on a date with Tony. Is that his name? Leo. Of course, his name is Leo, law enforcement officer. His name is Leo. How did I not even realize that, you guys? I hate it. She's in junior high school, so not 18 yet. Yeah, so he should be able to get right into that bank account and see everything. So the date. Listen, guys, Leo, I'm not warming up to him. I want to like him because I get the sense that people like him. I don't. The way he talks is so weird to me. Just kind of he talks like he's always really high or drunk and just sort of languid about the way he says everything. Weird vocal fry, which is not a thing that you see in dudes a whole lot, but I just don't find him charming, and the two of them just kind of creep me out, and I can't get past it. So she goes on this date with him, and Duncan is there with Megan, or Meg, not Megan, on a date with her, and she's meeting his parents. Yikes. This is just, she doesn't want to get up and leave, and I understand that because it's causing a scene a bit, and you just kind of want to act like this bothers me so little that I'm fine with having dinner right here. But Meg already got up and talked to you, and it was clearly super uncomfortable for both of you. You're not fooling anybody by staying and continuing to have your meal. Just leave. Just take the L. They were there first. He's with his parents. They can't just get up and leave either because they're with his parents. Just the whole situation is so awkward. Oh my God. So I just wanted to address that scene because it was really tough. And then the one other thing I do want to talk about is the militant vegan faction in her school who she thinks have captured Polly and like set her free because they believe that Polly being taken from her natural habitat and put in a cage is wrong. Now, I'm not going to talk shit about vegans in general because I was vegan for like 2 years. I was vegetarian for like 4 years and vegan for 2. I think maybe 3 vegetarian, 2 vegan. But I have lived that life and I understand wanting to feel like you can control something in the world, and your diet is something that seems very much within your control. And you can also have like a moral authority in making certain choices, or so you may think. I happen to think that like there's no good version of consumption in the universe, but you know. So these girls though are such like friggin' caricatures. They're not only is this girl like in the middle of talking to someone about how if she eats eggs, she may as well eat babies when Veronica walks in. But Veronica takes her jacket off, and I fucking knew because there was fur on it. I was like, there's got to be something with that jacket, right? Because it's obviously fake fur. Like, Veronica's not wearing fur. She's not. I'm not even going to talk about like the moral implications of it. Veronica's family is not a family that affords fur-lined jackets. That's just not who they are. But when she puts it down and then is talking to the girl and then turns around and sees that they are about to cut the fur off her jacket with a friggin' paper cutter, I hollered, like, that is such dumb. This is the kind of thing that maybe there are teenagers that were like this, but I like to think that people who are in this sort of lifestyle know how ridiculous that is, and that overreactions of this type, which are not only simply overreactions like objectively, even if that were fur, but it's also wrong because it's not real fur. So it's a combo of an overreaction and total ignorance. This just felt like a cartoon for a second here. It felt kind of out of place with the rest of the show, to be honest. And it was like funny in its way, but also just sort of like everybody who's vegan is garbage and stupid. And I was like, all right, guys, calm down a little bit. Like I'm just not, I have met plenty of people who are garbage and stupid about plenty of things, and they were not vegan, and it's fine. And there are plenty of vegan people who are just like, no, I just don't eat that stuff. And they're not making a big deal out of it. But I did still find the image of her coat on the paper cutter to be very amusing for some reason. I don't know why that cracked me up so much. I think it's just because it's such a blunt force reaction that feels very much like a guillotine, like beheading the rich, that I was just like, God, y'all are a little bit extra with this, aren't you? You can't just say shit. You've got to like make an example. So like I said, the episode ends with Veronica sending her mother to rehab, figuring out that it was one of Wallace's own teammates who did this whole thing with the parrot. I like that Veronica goes to that school and says something to this kid, Richie, about that he's a really good guy and good luck on the in the game today, but you're not going to beat Wallace, which I thought was kind of cute. There's just a lot of little moments in this that I enjoy. I just like her and Wallace being friends too, and that she is supportive of him with something that he cares about, even though she just doesn't really personally give a shit about it. She used to be on the pep squad, but obviously has given up a little bit on the school spirit thing since everything that's gone down with her. Yeah, as much as I had huge problems with the mother storyline in this episode, I actually really did like a lot of this episode. I felt like the development of the storyline between her and Wallace too, like I do want the two of them to be better friends. So and I want every time that we see him to not be her just asking for a favor. So I like that we got more development of the relationship of the two of them and her supporting him in a way that wasn't just her using him for favors. I'm pretty sure Kristen Bell is vegan, so I'm sure it was extreme for extreme's sake. Maybe. I didn't know she was vegan. I knew she was vegetarian. And they have to make all of the shrimp that she eats on what do you call it? Good Place. I was about to say Happy Place. So yeah, and it turns out that she sent a plant to the office of the dude that, has been spying on her and is listening in on his reaction to him listening in on her. And he mentions somebody's name about who she thinks is getting paid off and realizes that he has a daughter. Stella Kuntz died after a long battle with cervical cancer. She leaves behind daughter, and I think she says granddaughter, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to jump forward a little bit. Trying to find this spot here. Okay, let's see what the connection is between Amelia de Longpre and Abel Kuntz. Amelia de Longpre. My favorite thing about things like this is that she hears a name like that and immediately spells it correctly in Google. Yeah, that's not how that goes, guys. As somebody who has to deal with a lot of names for Patreon, there are so many names out there that you think are spelled one way that it turns out there are 11 different spelling choices. She leaves behind cervical cancer. Where is it? She leaves behind son Abel Kuntz of Neptune and granddaughter Amelia de Longpre. Okay, so that was his mother who died, and then gotcha. Abel Kuntz has a daughter, which is the fact that is that his daughter? Because her last name isn't the same, and her last name was listed when I would think that she's young enough to not have been married yet, but she might have been married by the time that obituary was written. I don't know. Or else Abel Kuntz fathered a child with somebody that he didn't marry, which is certainly possible. And that's why that girl has flown under the radar so far. Yeah. So there's a lot here. I'm going to do my weekly check-in, by the way, as to who I think killed Lily. And I'm going to say Veronica's mom for right now, simply because that woman seems like a kind of a disaster. And I feel like she's the sort of person who would do something like completely impulsive and, based on what I've seen of her so far, because I don't really know her at all before this whole incident happened. So I haven't really got a frame of reference for that. Yeah, so I'm going to wrap this up. I have another installment at 4 p.m. of Deep Wizardry. So if you guys are interested in joining me for that, it is at 4 p.m. Central Time. I hope that you all enjoyed this episode. If you have questions, please hit me up. Either come to the next Crowdcast, which let me look and double check at what date that's going to be on. Oh, come on. I hate this thing. Let's see. The next one is The Novice, and then we have Parable of the Sower. There is no next episode coming up. Oh, no, there is. Veronica Mars on the 7th of December, which is a Friday. I'll keep you guys posted on that, because there's a weird exclamation point next to that makes me think that somebody scheduled it and then canceled it or something. So I'll keep you posted. So thank you all again so much for coming. Thank you again to Renee for sponsoring this episode, and I will see you all soon with a new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
was an Unspoiled Network podcast.